All right. Quick little video for Johnny.
Take your
He's
shoes
almost
off,
walked on the
dude.
mat.
Come on,
shoes,
man.
with shoes on. Oh my god. All right. So, a lot of questions about how you can kind of like wrestle more effectively. And the thing that I'm seeing from you is that you don't like to shoot from the outside and use a lot of movement. And that's good. That's fine. Like, that's how I like to wrestle. So, you're kind of coming in here and throwing this right-handed collar tie. You're just hopping back between the collar ties. And there's a lot of like, it's like you kind of know where you want to be, but you don't know how to use it effectively. And you're leaking a lot of power because you're not like aligning yourself properly, right? So what I'm going to show you right now is just about pivots, because the thing that I keep seeing you do is try to arm drag. And there's ways we can do that that are a bit more effective. So you keep doing this thing where you're here and you reach across and you're like here with a right leg lead. Your foot is inside of his frame, right? Of the between his feet. Here, I can't really drag him well, and I'm actually exposing my back, right? So in boxing, if I take a stance like this, see I have orthodox with a left hand jab, right hand there. Going this way is the fastest way to my back. That's my blind side. They call that in boxing. I can't see over there as well, right? And so when I'm like this, I go here, right? I go here. I'm putting him on my back. And you do a decent job of like coming back to your underhook. That's okay. But really the pivot I have is to throw and throw him with like a back stepping throw. And so there's nothing invalid about that. It's not what you're actually trying to do.
Yeah, the thing that makes it invalid is that you're not trying to throw, you're trying to do an arm drag. So you're putting yourself in a position to throw him while arm dragging. So it's like you're wanting to do this, but your body is doing this.
Right. And so what we need to be able to do is keep them over here. So if I'm in a left leg lead, I have this like little L right here. Right here. This is where he's still in front of me. He's not behind me. Right? As soon as he goes over there, he's behind me. I want to, in general,
over here,
keep him in front of me, inside my hip girdle. See this right here, right? The thing that you do is you make your hip girdle very narrow, because we like to go, look, when he's right leg lead,
my hip girdle's here, right?
And then I go here with my hip girdle. You see how we have this very narrow box?
Go this way so you can see better.
We have this very narrow box where our hip girdles meet.
So like over here, if he comes over here more, he's still in my hip girdle. But all he's got to do is go a little bit this way, he's out of my hip girdle, right? So if I'm trying to attack this side of the body, putting my hip girdle this way doesn't like work as well. It's generally better if I'm attacking his left side.
Right. And so, we can get into like very noodly details there, right? But really it's about your ability to pivot, right? Because people wrestle like this all the time. It's perfectly valid, but they're like wrestling a traditional US American style, doing knee over toe steps, all that kind of stuff. Outside style of wrestling. I did it through all my Division 1 years, it's valid. But for you want to be utilizing your pivots more, right? So if I'm a boxer, the most powerful thing I can do is pivot from the ground forward, right? Creating a strong punch. Now, I'm a crappy striker, so don't nitpick my technique. But it's this. Like I'm throwing a lacrosse stick. I'm throwing a ball. It's going forward, right? The problem is that in wrestling, we're not usually doing this to hit things, right? But I need to still be in this because I have a strong backward pivot here. See this? Pivoting toward my front leg, pivoting toward my back leg. So when I want to drag here, if I'm here with my leg here, I don't have a strong pivot going backwards because this goes to my blind side.
You pivot into your own leg. It stops you like this.
Right? So I want to be here like this. See this? So if I am a right leg lead, and you'll see a guy like, there's this guy, Rei Higuchi from Japan. He's an Olympic champion. He's like wrestles here, and then he steps up. See, I'm here. I step up, and I pull. Or I can just be in a left leg stance and go here. If I'm in a right leg stance, it means my arm drag is here, right? So again, when I do this arm drag, I'm here, right? I'm here like this. And then when I pivot on his side, see how I pivot from here, and now I'm back in a right leg lead, and this becomes my rear hand, right? So that's our like head outside pivot. Even when I duck under, it's that. Look, so I'm here, I go to duck under, and then look, I pivot. See? I pivot to get his back. And then I can pivot more to put him down, to spin him down. But we want to use these pivots, right? So the first one is just this backwards pivot. You know, even a throw by, backwards pivot, right? So in your stance, if you didn't want to change your lead leg, you could do what's called the head inside arm drag, right? So if we're boxing, right, left versus left, right, orthodox versus orthodox, the common thing is I want to circle to his blind side, and I'm going to pivot out like this. See, I'm just like picking up my foot. This is a different type of pivot, like you might do in basketball, right? Here, where a foot's planted. So when I'm here, I can pivot to here, and now I get behind him, right? So for your arm drag, right, I go bang, and I pivot here.
See how the head stays inside?
The head stays inside, yeah.
So it's like when I'm doing this, my high crotch, I have to step. If I'm going to single leg, there. So what he's doing here, there's a high crotching arm drag, and then there's a single legging arm drag. And so when I say high crotching versus single legging, what I'm really meaning is a head outside single leg and a head inside single leg.
And they're both valid. They're both valid. You just use them at different times, right? So it's pivots like that we need to be able to do, right? You like the other type of pivot that's good that we might want to work on is the uppercut underhook. You're very focused on, you get this collar tie in that match, you get this collar tie, and then you're like focused on doing this and getting yourself in, and you're trying to dig, right? But watch what I can do, even for the way you do it. I'm going to hold this, and I'm going to pivot, and then you see how my shoulder is in this hole here, in this neck crevice. So if I'm here, I come out, I collar tie him, I pull. See there, now I've got my shoulder inside his. When my shoulder's inside his, I can underhook, okay? But let's say he's blocking me out. You know, I catch here or whatever. I'm doing this, he comes up. I want to dip my shoulder under, right? Bam. And just smack him there to underhook him.
So notice how this one also comes. If I'm a right leg lead, I cannot do that. Now I can. Because my pivot, boom, forward.
Either square or this leg slightly back.
So this pivot, when we're doing this arm drag, I can pivot forward, then back. This one here, I do this underhook, I pivot back, then forward. Do you see that? So this pivot you need to work on is back, forward, back, forward.
And creating rotational power there.
And notice how I'm not moving my feet. back, forward. Then there's the other pivot, which is a circular
like you would do it in basketball, right? That one's good too. But what we're doing here, because we're using pivots, it's like a hinge of a door, right? So I come in here, I'm pressuring fill, right? And then I pivot. See how I did that circular pivot here, head inside? Or I go here, pivot. See? I'm pressuring, releasing the pressure. There's a door, they push back, I open the door and let them through it. Right?
It's literally just like jujitsu. If he's on the ground, right, and he's pushing against me, and in order to release pressure, I've got to let go and move.
That gives me time to move as well.
Whereas like he's pressuring and then I can...
See the pivot there? Pivot. So we need to be able to pivot. If you want to fight with pressure, you want to use pressure, the key skill is knowing how to pivot.
And the thing that's nice about pressure in a jiu-jitsu sense is it's more like jiu-jitsu, less like wrestling. So if we're talking about jiu-jitsu in a guard passing aspect, it's like, okay, we've got like this really loose outside passing.
Lots of motion, lots of explosion.
But then we can do like, okay, we're doing pressure, we're pressuring, okay. Tight passing, pressure passing. So what we're doing is we're just going, okay, in wrestling, there are two styles. There's this outside loose wrestling, then there's a tight pressure wrestling. So when we're talking about wrestling as guards, I've got my collar tie, right? I've got my underhook. These are positions that are very stable and that they have reactions, but if I know what the reactions are, I can play them. Just like I play a half guard, or I play a delihiva, or I play a butterfly, right?
And so what I see you doing a lot is you like this right hand collar tie and you like this right hand underhook. You like to do stuff with your right hand. And so the way that I like to do it is I'll go here and I'll head block post him here.
Do you notice because his leg is back, when he head blocks, there's a really strong frame. There's a really strong frame because the kinetic chain is more direct. It's more of a line. If he's in a right leg stance and he does this, you see it's still frames, but it's like, it's a little more disjointed. It means the frame's not as strong, right? It doesn't mean that it's not a good frame. It just means it's like, it's a little bit, you can't hold it as long. So it becomes more touchy, meaning it's gonna be more in line with doing this outside-y type movement, right? So if we wanna be inside, we want stronger frames.
So I like to post his head. See how my head is going here? Post his head and then release the head. Bam! See how I pivot to this collar tie? And then I can find over here, right? We can get stuck in ear to ear, but because I'm on the outside here, right, it's very easy for me to like take this off to fight that collar tie.
The way that you're gonna actually get stuck in ear to ear is if you put your right leg forward. That's where we get stuck.
Right here, right leg versus right leg ear to ear. This is where I don't got nothing to do. I'm trapped. We're both
the
trapped.
person who does this first, they're gonna win. Right? Generally.
Yeah, there's always an answer for everything. But generally speaking, that's a better way to go about it. And so what I want to see you do is be able to take this collar tie. So the first thing is that arm drag. We got to fix that arm drag. We fix it either by doing this to pivot, or when we go here, pivoting this way so that we end up here. You need to spend some time literally just with a partner feeling how you can pivot him through, how you can pivot through here, feeling those pivots, you know, even you pressure, pivot, right? And then with our collar tie, we want to be able to snap. And again, this goes to your underhook snap sucking. like not sucking, but what wasn't effective, right? So when we collar tie here, I want to snap to my back leg so he doesn't grab my leg. Okay? But there's two different collar ties. There's a collar tie where my head is on the opposite side of my grip. You see that? My head and my grip are on opposite sides. And so when I'm snapping here, it's hard to actually snap him unless I have this tricep grip, because that's going to pull him down toward my back leg. See that? If I don't have that tricep grip, there's ways to do it. It's just harder. So generally the snap comes out of my lead hand here like this. And then the other thing I can do is I can pivot. Watch, I'm here. This is my left hand's my lead hand. Watch. I pick my head up. I put my head on the same side as my collar tie. So I'm here. You see how I'm pivoting? As I do this, I snap him into my arm. So it's a diagonal snap. So instead of it being straight down, I'm taking it. I'm looking at my own hand. Instead of pulling it straight down, to the side. See? And this snap is going to be really strong in jiu-jitsu, because in jiu-jitsu, people wrestle more upright than you would in traditional wrestling. So in traditional wrestling, because their heads are down, this down snap, the linear straight down snap works really well. He can be standing straight up, and I can still do this diagonal snap, right? And so what you did with your underhook is you had your underhook like this, right? And you were like here kinda, and then you look like this and you're like pulling it here. See that? What you gotta do is you gotta throw your head over here. Boom, see this? I'm like in this hole looking at it, snap, right here. So it's the same diagonal snap we were showing from the collar tie, but just from an underhook. So for you, I wouldn't even spend a ton of time right now on your underhook or on your Russian. You know, like you can do that if it's fun, like for sure, 100%, that's a lot of fun. But for you, I always see when you wrestle, the last 2 times you sent videos, is you're going to that collar tie right away. And that makes sense. That's a common place to go. So why don't we take some time to get good at just the collar tie?
And then what you're going to find when you actually get good at collar tie, that the collar tie, the underhook, and the 2-on-1 Russian style are basically the same tie. They're the same body positions, but just with different grips. That's all they are.
So I'm going to show you how I can use my pivots to steer the head. So look, here I've got the collar tie. I like to hold myself on the opposite side here. I feel like this gives me better pressure. I can go here too, right? I can go here too. That's valid. That's just a different type of collar tie. But what I like to do is pressure, push the head down to snap, and you can come up, right? So it's like I have here, straight into him. I pick my hand, I'm snapping him down, and then watch. I can drop my elbow, and as I pivot to push, see there? I get this elbow pass. It's a reverse collar tie.
So again, the reverse collar tie, grabbing a snap, and then
Pivot. See that? Very simple, very easy. Combine that with your snap. The other one is I pivot more. I drop my hand down. I'm taking this hook off. I pivot, I replace, and I get here. Now I can go that way. See how it's a pivot? I pressure, I snap. I pressure, I pivot. I pressure, I pivot, replace.
And notice that the pivot going to this side is my foot moving. My foot moving. See, if I try and do that without my foot moving,
I get stuck. Right? So we want to utilize these pivots more. right? And then always remember that with your collar tie, the frames for your collar tie is your elbow.
Your forearm, man.
Your forearm elbow. Right here. See this? Like this. If I'm here and I think, oh, I want to put my head in this pit, you see how this elbow came off? I'm getting thrown. Okay, I lose that, right? We can get more fancy with it and start doing throw bys and all that. And you know, after you do this stuff, like, I don't want to add too much, but the stuff that we've done with the arm drag and steering the head, once you get confident with that, we can do throw bys and all that kind of stuff.
So again, just to make it a little like back down to earth here with a little less stuff to do. Pivot, 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 stepping pivot, stepping pivot, pivot, pivot.
Think about your pivots. Also think about how when I go like this, I have a weak pivot because I'm bent over. As I pick my body up, now I have strong pivots like a puncher. So if you watch like this Higuchi guy I'm talking about, or just anybody who wrestles in general, they'll be here, right? I'm pressuring with my head, I'm pressuring with my hands, and then when I want to drag, I come up. See? So even I've got this cross wrist because I'm here, right here, right? He's got his head in, I've got the reverse wrist here. I go step back, up to pivot, right?
So again, just with a person, literally just be like this, pivot. Be with a person, pivot. But for now, just have your hand on the outside. You see how I didn't move around him? I went, or I can move around him with, I can either here pivot, or I can stay here
and again, in our collar tie, this forearm's a frame, this hand is a hook. I don't want to look into his head here because I lose this frame. I want to keep it here, generally speaking.
So let's look at, he puts his head in there and loses that frame. So like maybe you're not going to get headlocked, but you can just get underhooked.
Don't want to look into here with that collar tie. There's times where you do, but don't do that, right? People will tell you to do that, and it's not exactly great advice. Okay. If you have any other questions, I don't want to add too much stuff, but let me know. Just work on that. Work on just making sure you're understanding these two pivots, the circular pivot, my forward and back pivot, as well as thinking about your frames and how you're placing them. Steering the head and arm drags. Collar tie, steer the head, arm drags. You can do that. You can arm drag both sides of the body. You can steer the head and snap people down. You can like just win. You can like just put pressure on, be patient, and cover them.
Until you find an actual wrestler, but that's not the problem.
Yeah, but the guys you're fighting, you'll be able to do that. Cool.